Greetings, welcome back, Dark Horses. We have another podcast, Professor Charles and myself. As always, I was just saying that I'm super pumped for this one. I was talking to Professor earlier about what we should talk about today, and look through my bank of ideas and came up with two possibilities. Competition and kind of concepts in jiu-jitsu, interesting concepts in jiu-jitsu, which there's a lot of. And started writing them down, and I had a lot of thoughts, so let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Are there any other opening things we should do?
No, I mean, all the usual stuff.
Like,
subscribe,
comment below.
Yes, we're not getting nearly enough comments, and if we don't know what we're doing, then we don't know what to do better. So let us know. I mean, hell, just throw us a hi if you're thinking about us.
Yeah. There is a competition coming up in 2 weeks if it isn't canceled. It's looking like it, right? 2 weeks ish.
Yes, and if you're not watching this video in the future.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. The future is in motion, and then this won't be up today, anyways. But it's Grappling Industries, right?
Yeah.
And where? Do you know where it is?
It's down there in Parker.
Parker.
Yeah.
Near Rasslecock?
Yep.
Yeah. And they have a different rule set than Fight to Win and IBJJF. They allow knee bars at blue belt.
I believe so.
Toe holds at blue belt.
Maybe.
There are a couple of maybe neck cranks are legal at blue belt. There were some interesting things on there.
Yeah.
I should have printed that out.
And the no-gi absolute is open belt.
Boom. So one of the competition prep is a huge thing, and so one of them is one of the really important things is making sure to know the rules before you compete.
Huge.
And we were just talking about legal submissions and illegal submissions, but there's more to it than that. But that is super important. So I had a student, Coach Goose, James, was competing. Knew wrist locks were legal. Put his opponent in a wrist lock. His opponent was like, "Oh, that's illegal, whatever," and looked at the referee. James stopped, and the guy got out of the wrist lock, and then I guess I don't know what happened, but he didn't win. I think he lost the match too.
Yeah, I've definitely seen silly and needless DQs and competition losses from stuff like that.
There are YouTube videos of of compilations of that exact thing.
Yeah, simple stuff like not knowing the rules, and like you said, reading the rules can be stuff that's not just mat stuff, right? That can help you pack your bag for the tournament, right? The different uniform specifications, the different things that are going on. You need to know what's going on in that tournament so you don't go and
IBJJF, they measure the length, they measure the width of the opening of the end of the cuff.
Mm-hmm.
They measure the pant length.
Mm-hmm.
They might measure a couple other things I'm not thinking of. But you want to have, for IBJJF, you want to have a white and a blue gi. Is that, I can't remember if that's all belts. It's just black belt.
It's just black belt, I think, but it's not a bad idea to have more than one gi, regardless of the tournament. But yeah, IBJJF have a white one and a blue one ready.
Competition specific gi, so like a nice lightweight one. If you have to weigh in the gi,
with your patches in the correct place,
have your Dark Horse patches on your gi when you compete under the Dark Horse banner.
Well, and
whatever academy represent.
And there's rules on where those patches can be and how big they can be and that kind of thing. So I mean, it's like I said, silly DQs is the worst.
No competition that I've seen where they have rules on it allow you to have a patch on your crotch for some reason. Whereas I think it'd be like a good armor,
and it really doesn't interfere with any grips or
maybe?
Yeah.
I don't know why people are so uptight about it.
Huh. Yeah, now that I think about it, it doesn't There's no reason why not.
Yeah. Cool. Gi, and then there's a lot of mundane stuff that if you haven't competed a lot, you wouldn't really think about. But if I'm competing in another state, I'll drive the route the day before, just so I know it, I'm comfortable with it, so I'm not stressing out about taking a wrong turn or being late or whatever. Like I know how long it takes. Cut your nails beforehand. I had a panic, pull over at 7-Eleven and buy some clippers before Worlds.
Yeah. Overpack, I think, for competition, right? Like, you don't think you'll need another pair of compression shorts, but you will.
And competitions are long, like bring some water, bring some snacks.
Yeah.
Maybe bring a little honey packets or whatever if you want like a little energy boost between matches.
I've seen people pack a small blanket in their bag, in their gi bag or whatever. And I don't think that's a terrible idea at all.
Mm-mm.
It's a nice way to just like cover up and stay warm, or curl up in a corner and take a rest or whatever. Having a blanket or a towel with you can kind of help with a lot of things during a competition.
At wrestling tournaments in high school, they ran them differently. They'd run like all of the first rounds of the tournament first, and then they'd start all of the second rounds of the tournament. So it was a lot more spread out when you competed. So I would sometimes sleep in between rounds.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe you're doing gi and no gi. Maybe you're doing absolute that's later. I don't like to hang out at a tournament, at least before my first match. Like I want to show up, warm up, and compete if at all possible, because I feel like just being in the atmosphere with all that stress and adrenaline and everything, I feel like I soak it in, and it just makes me tighten up, and it's hard for me to loosen up after I've been there for a couple hours before I compete. Yeah, after I've competed, it's fine. It's whatever.
Yeah, I'm a big like the first match is the stress match. That's where all of my prep and stress and worry goes, is that first one. And then after that, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember what this is about. I'm supposed to be here.
Yeah.
Everything's great. But I think too, it's kind of an under talked about or an under prepared for element of tournaments is that space, is that waiting. You just have no idea. You have no idea, and it can be really stressful waiting for your next match, not knowing if it's going to be 20 minutes from now or 3.5 hours from now.
The not knowing, yeah.
Yeah.
Fear of the unknown, sure. That's a big fear, absolutely.
Yeah, right. And you don't know, and then you have to be ready at the end.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a thing to consider and a thing to be prepared for as you go into a tournament, especially if it's one of your first tournaments. Be ready to sit around waiting and to do like low grade warm-ups constantly all day.
I remember maybe it was the second Pans I ever went to, and both Elliot Marshall and Nick Klein were supposed to compete at noonish, let's say. They're down there 11:30 warming up, and the tournament was so poorly organized that they didn't end up competing until 6 or 7 p.m., which is that's a long time to be warming up. But they were down there in the little bullpen, whatever, warming up for 6-7 hours, pretty much straight. I don't know if they took breaks or whatever. Like I don't, but it was, but yeah, and that as part of the the beauty of competing, why it's so good for you is to put yourself through that stress and know that you can overcome it. I mean, even if whatever, I think everyone should compete at least once.
Agreed.
Just to just to put yourself, walk through the fire, and kind of see what you are like under that type of stress, under that type of pressure. I think you learn a lot about yourself, even if you get your ass kicked in your first match and that's it.
Yeah.
I think it's worthwhile. The caveat is people that may take those losses really heavily.
Yeah, but at the same time, jujitsu kind of self-selects it a little bit, a little way for that,
For sure.
and then reinforces kind of a good loser mentality.
Yeah.
Right, like you're just gonna get smoked for a while, and if you're the kind of person that can't take a loss, you don't hang out in jujitsu for very long.
Yeah. My friend Luke, I was thinking about this story earlier today, and I don't know if you know him or not, and I can't remember his last name, but he trained a lot. This was back in the day in Boulder, and he got his blue belt in something crazy, like 8 or 9 months. Like he was training all the time. He was like, he wasn't super big. He worked in the trades though. Like I'd say he had like an athletic build. But he was like his grips and he was ridiculously strong. He was training all the time. And I want to say, maybe right before, or right after he got his blue belt, he competed no gi, and he did really well. He won like several matches, and then he lost like maybe it was like the semifinal. Ended up getting third. Maybe they fought for third. But like he went back into the locker room and he was like punching the lockers and had a huge meltdown and like disappeared for months. Like I think he quit jiu-jitsu basically for 9 months or a year afterwards, and his whole life took this downward spiral. And I was like, oh, this is so bad. Like maybe he shouldn't have competed.
Yeah.
Definitely the exception. But
yeah, I mean, I think it's certainly an extreme example, but it's a thing that I think even people that consider themselves very average need to be on the lookout for.
Just be aware. Like I can't tell by looking at someone how they're going to react, and maybe they don't know either, but they're in a better position to know if they might have a really bad reaction to a loss.
Yeah. Well, and I think everybody knows before they go into a match how much they've built the match up. And there's there's a big spectrum there where if you've trained 2 days a week and you've have very measured expectations and like the match is built up in your head in a way that like, oh, this is a little check-in for myself and it's all good, then regardless of what happens in that match, you're gonna go forward. But if you build the match up like it's Madison Square Garden in the World Championship, and like even if if you train 2 days a week and build it up like it's the greatest match that ever was, you're gonna be disappointed regardless of win or lose. So I think there's a lot of mentality going into a match that, and again, I say match, not necessarily tournament, but going into the match can make or break your reaction to the outcome of that match.
So you're talking about mental preparation for a competition.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things to do, and it's an interesting subject. And I wouldn't consider myself a master of it. Like I haven't mastered mental prep, but I do know a lot of tricks. Monitoring self-talk and kind of changing it, and visualizations, visualizing yourself on the podium, getting your medal, visualizing yourself on the mat, drenched in sweat, getting your hand raised by the referee.
I think I'm a big proponent of visualizing the match going sequentially how you want it to go.
Yeah.
Right. Pulling your takedown technique and instigating your guard game or your top game, and running through like specifically, how does my hand feel around this person's wrist? How does it feel when I lock in my favorite submission? Where am I feeling? Where would I feel the pressure if my triangle was perfect? And really like getting specific, visualizing.
As you visualize, the more detail that you can add to the visualization, the better, for sure. If you're nervous about competing, which basically everyone is when they compete, visualizing yourself in those bad spots, visualize yourself in the bottom of the mountain, visualize yourself with someone on your back, with someone in side control, with someone. Visualize yourself in an arm bar. Visualize yourself escaping that position over and over again, and then you can even add on to that, right? Like visualize that escape, and then all the connections you would need to take it all the way to a submission where you win that match. And whenever you're nervous, you can just stop and kind of imagine that a bad position in jiu-jitsu and imagine yourself working yourself out of it, taking that all the way to a victory.
100%.
That's worked for me, and that's worked for several students over the years.
Yep. And again, even with those bad spots, getting specific, feeling what's the in the Hagakure, in the samurai code book, right? They say, picture yourself being, what is it, burned alive in a fire and torn apart by arrows and cut with a sword and blah 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 blah. Right? Picture the bad things happening. And I say similarly, imagine what it feels like to have your face smashed to the side in side control. And imagine exactly what it feels like to grab that shoulder and move it out of the way and feel the specifics of, okay, this discomfort then goes to this technique, then goes to this escape. And picture yourself being uncomfortable. Imagine what that uncomfortableness feels like. And when it happens, it's not world shattering.
So especially in the beginning, like competing just to get experience, competing to test yourself. I had something else here. Fun experience, learn. Get out there and have fun. Totally fine. As you move along in competition, I feel like there's a range of not expectations, but your mental state. Like you see really high level fighters that are perhaps arrogant, perhaps delusional, and I think that actually is part of it. But I think the mental range, if you're going to compete, if you want to compete at the highest levels, your mental range has to be at the very lowest point. I know I can win. And then at the highest point, the ones that I was kind of referring to is they know they will win, right? Which is it delusional? Is it?
I mean, is constructive delusion a thing?
Yeah, we need Thiago back.
Yeah.
We need him for this. But that's your range. If you want to compete at the highest level, at the very least, you have to know you can win, right? If you're going out there thinking, oh, he's going to kick my butt, whatever, like you're not there yet. And you need to put more time in on yourself. I think leading up to a competition, I'll do little things that are challenges for me, but also things that I know I can complete. I know I can finish to build up my confidence. And it's like little things like this week, I'm going to get up at 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. or whatever, like make my bed, whatever. But I try to give myself a bunch of those to build that kind of real world confidence going into a tournament.
Hell yeah. I mean, if you don't know what it feels like to win, if you don't know what it takes to win, then you're out of practice in winning. Right? You might have 100 reps of armbar, but you don't have 100 reps of winning. And so building that up, even in small things, I think that's a great.
We talked about gameness a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's huge. I think too, you touched on a little bit, like going into that competition with a different mentality. And I think you can really set yourself up for success or failure in accurately defining your goals. And I think in a lot of competitions, people don't define their goals well. And the reason that they're doing the competition is not the reason that they say they're doing the competition.
Don't lie to yourself.
Yeah, right. And I think if you're lying to yourself, you're obviously lying to your coach, and it makes it much harder to help you get to where you want to be. But things like, I've seen people do a competition not for fun and not to like as a check-in to see where their game was, even though that's the reason they're telling everybody, but they're doing it because they think there's a promotion on the other end of this tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like,
get that recognition from coach or professor.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna kick this ass and I'm gonna get my belt. Okay, but if you were telling your coach or professor for months and months and months that I'm gonna do this as a little check-in and do it for fun, just see where I'm at these days. So that's the expectation your coach or professor has, and that's how they're going to train you, and that's what the environment around you is going to be. And if you're telling yourself, if you're saying out loud one thing and in the back of your head it's, well, I'm gonna get that belt, then when the things don't happen, there's this weird disconnect that can like really damage your view of both your game and jiu-jitsu in general.
I like that. Kind of a hidden blue belt blues step piece.
Yeah, and I think that having expectations, or I guess having goals that don't match the effort you're putting in, is a pretty common thing before blue belt blues.
And SMART goals, the relevant is the R. It could be real, but could be relevant. But like, if your goal is to win a tournament and get that gold medal, that's not actually something you really care about, then why are you doing it?
Yeah. Well, and similarly, if your goal is to compete and get that gold medal, but you're putting all of your reps into punch block, right, and you're just pounding home on self-defense, then you're kind of spinning your wheels.
Your actions aren't in alignment.
Yeah. So, not only does the goal have to be relevant, but the actions taken towards the goal need to be relevant. And I think that is brought to a very fine point when we get into competition. Right. I think people go in with saying right answers, right? What they think are right answers.
What they think people need to want to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But their actual goals are something different. And so it's important to like really define what's my real goal. What do I actually want out of this?
And part of training jiu-jitsu is you find out sometimes for yourself who you are through the process of training. The competition can do that too. The the kind of segueing here. We talked about visualization and visualizing the match, and I found when I competed, like if I was visualizing like the days before, whatever, right, leading up to it, that often in the match I'd be running those scripts in my head of the things I'd visualized, and I would not be in the moment with the person that wasn't moving in the ways that I was visualizing in my head because of what I visualized. So doing all that programming, I like to do it earlier, 2 months out, a month out, and then at some point, the last week or so, I stopped visualizing about the match, about what's going to happen, so that in the moment I can be in the moment with them and competing and not playing other scripts in my head.
Yeah, that's huge. And I really have to kind of get in the zone before I compete for exactly that reason, right? Like separate from all the stuff that I've done before. And I usually start out and I tell myself, okay, you've done all the work. We're in prize time, right? The work is done. Now just turn your brain off and let the body do what you trained it to do.
getting into the zone for a competition. That's a good one. What do you do to get into the zone for a competition, to get into the best mental state you can get into?
So usually I am so nervous on competition day. I'm very, very anxious.
Yeah.
And so I'll go to like stillness and silence a lot. And so I'm a big proponent of like having your team there, having support with you, right?
Yeah.
Right, to the point of like meet up at the school and carpool down with somebody else that you know is competing.
Yeah, I like that.
Right, like I've done it many times where I'll show up at a tournament early because I'm thinking, all right, this is, I'm going to make sure that I do my thing. And so I show up super early and I think, well, I'm going to warm up. And then I warm up for 15 minutes by myself and get anxious and, whatever. And it's just a bad time. So what I really like to do is I'll hit the warm up area and I kind of go through the warm ups like we do in class, right? And try to get kind of brain dead. Because we've done the
warm ups a million times, so you can kind of shut off and just do that thing that you do every day. That's a good.
And then that gets the body going.
That's a good tip.
And then I will. I do a lot of ritual stuff. A lot of like transition, right? Bow in, change out, tie my belt a certain way.
Yeah.
And then once I get kind of warmed up and I get a little more in the body, sometimes I'll do a little meditation, whatever. And then I like to go out and watch a match or two, and just like feel out the environment, so that I'm not. I think my first
shocked by the difference.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Yeah. My first gi tournament, I was just kind of taken aback by the environment, and I remember very specifically staring at the lights. Like the guy smoked me in the takedown, and I don't remember what he did in the finish. I don't remember anything else about the thing. I just remember like I was looking up at the lights and, oh, well, this didn't go well.
Yeah. You have that weird sound where all the sounds are distorted, like in the background.
Yeah.
You're in that mind space of space. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that feeling.
So I like to go. It's a lot of like grounding type stuff, right? So I'll go out into the competition space and listen to all the sounds, and take my shoes off and feel the mat. I go out and find my teammates or see who's in the cheering section, and kind of like get dialed in. Where, okay, I need to listen for that area of the room. They're going to be, those are my folks, and that's going to be where my support comes from. And and so just kind of feel it out, and then I like to do flow rolling.
It's a good one.
Until my brain shuts off, like until I'm almost sore. Like, be in the body and not in the mind.
If you're competing for the first time, or not the first time, but like one of the first times, or any time, if you have the option, if there's someone there to coach you, don't just hope that they know when you're competing and will be there. Like, seek them out and ask them to coach you. Try to get someone to be there.
Mm-hmm.
In the lead up to a tournament, like the day of, I'll do an opener. And I used to, like, first thing in the morning, I'd run a mile just to like wake up the body, get that stress out, whatever. In the week before, I'd try to do as many fun, relaxing things as I could. Meditate, find a hot tub, go for a hike. Fun activities. The day of, I'll listen to music with the right energy, like not like crazy aggressive angry, but like call it like a smolder, like some aggression to it, a little bit of an edge to it, but not full out yet. but like building.
Steady 75.
Yeah, building. Yeah. What else? Getting. I do a lot of flow training when I'm running comp classes in the lead up to a tournament. The last week, the last couple days, I'll have them doing a lot of flow training. Matches from the feet, they slap hands, and then one person will do takedown, the other person will do a takedown, guard pass, whatever, yada yada yada, all the way to a submission. And then up, and then do that again, and the other person will go slap hands. The other person does a takedown, whatever, yada yada yada, all the way to a submission, and then do that again. And then when they're comfortable with that, on the second go, their opponent will start throwing curveballs at them, and they'll just kind of flow with that and still take it to a submission. It might be a completely different submission, whatever. But just like a lot of flow training, getting them into the zone mentally, getting them relaxed, getting them to do jujitsu without thinking about it. Getting them feeling good.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of like really wearing folks out in the few weeks, like in comp classes leading up to a competition.
Yeah.
Right. Because if you, again, kind of wear yourself out to the point where you can't think straight, right? Like your calorie allotment is not going to your brain anymore. Right? You have to keep your heart beating and your legs have to keep moving for whatever reason, right? And so, yeah, go brain dead then, and then go back to things like mount escapes and back escapes, and so that when you are exhausted and brain dead, and like your body just goes automatic.
Yeah, the first couple of weeks of comp training are as hard as I can make them. I'll throw as many mental curveballs at them as I can. And I say like a 2-month camp. One of those comp classes, I'll turn the heat up early, so it's really freaking hot in the room, just cause. And at certain points, I'll like say it's a 5-minute match, and then just not run a timer and stop it when I decide it's over with. Or like whatever curveballs I can come up with to throw them, and at first it'll throw them off. After a while, they just get used to it, and they realize they have to fight as hard as they can, regardless of what I'm throwing at them, and that's the point. But man, if you're not used to it, like you're driving to the tournament, there can be a car wreck, and you gotta like take a side route, and like if you're running a little late, that can be super stressful. Like that's life. But I try to integrate that into the competition training. I'm trying to think of some other good examples. It's also pretty fun. It's fun to throw curveballs at the students.
Yeah,
and it's fun to watch them. After a while of it, just nothing shows on their face. They do that thing and they push through, and you're like, okay, cool.
Yeah, and I think you have to kind of you have to perform how you practice. And so if you're practicing for or practicing in unusual circumstances, you're going to perform in unusual circumstances. And a tournament is always going to be unusual circumstances, right? It's hotter and bigger and colder and louder and more stress and whatever. It's different than training every day in the academy.
So the person you're fighting is fighting you. They're learning you at the same time. They train at a different academy, so they do stuff you're not used to. The referee may not give you your points. Their coach may be yelling something that's super distracting. Break it, break the arm, break it, whatever it is. These things happen.
But I mean, just like any other circumstance, we can prepare for it, and we do. And you can prepare yourself for it. Right? I like my rituals because it puts me in that space. Like, okay.
I remember when we did
now.
When we did Masters Worlds, we sat down several months beforehand. Beforehand, maybe it wasn't several months, and we looked at who had signed up for our brackets, and we looked those people up, and we studied their matches, and we did little breakdowns of them. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Know your enemy is it's in the art of war.
Absolutely.
He who knows his enemy and knows himself will not lose in 1,000 battles or whatever it is he says.
And I mean, I think there's huge disadvantages of the YouTube age, but that's one of the great big advantages. There's more and more video on more and more people, purple belts, blue belts. So it's entirely possible if your partner or if your potential opponent has competed before, you can look them up. You can, you can scout them out. You can start to get that advantage. I don't know. I think there's a level to which that has a diminishing return. Right? I think
Absolutely.
you can over prepare for one opponent
Yeah.
to the detriment of being prepared for everybody else in the bracket.
Yeah, sure. And you don't want to be thinking about their matches or the things they like to do or whatever very much as you're actually fighting them. You don't want to be taking yourself out of the fight to be thinking about the matches you watched of them at other times, because they could actually fight fairly differently.
Yeah.
On a given day.
Yeah. Well, and I think that goes back to what you were saying about being in the moment, right? Like we can visualize our game going perfectly, and then when it doesn't go perfectly in the real world, we need to adapt in the moment. We need to be present. And similarly, if you're scouting out your opponent and they don't do that right hand grip that you saw them do 4 times, and they do something else, and you're sitting there wondering, well, why didn't he come in with his right hand? What's he planning? Huh? Well, yeah, you're behind now. Yeah, so let's say, I don't know if I do something specific to be present, to be like,
how do you snap yourself into the moment?
usually I'm so like, especially in the first match, I'm so adrenalized that I'm like hyper focused.
Yeah.
I'm, I feel I'm like very present to that guy. But yeah, I think for me mostly it's just I keep reminding myself, you already did the work. You already did the work. You already know this. It's not learning time. You already know this.
And there's like a fine line, like maybe you want to try to relax a little bit more before your first match, but then you can also take that too far and just be too lax out there. So you don't want to go too far. So you kind of got to fine tune. And I've talked to Eric about this a little bit. Like if you're listening to Rage Against the Machine before your matches and you all amped up, like your jiu-jitsu is very possibly going to be too aggressive. You're going to burn yourself out. Like not going to be efficient. You'll be trying too hard, get too big of an adrenaline dump. Like that's not ideal either.
Yeah.
But kind of finding that middle ground for you as a person.
Yeah. And therein is another benefit of competition itself, is you learn what it takes for you to get, well, you can learn what it takes for you to get in the zone, or sometimes you can learn a complicated process that results in you not getting in the zone, and then you know,
Yeah.
oh, this complicated process results in not being in the zone.
That didn't work.
Yeah,
That didn't work. The
valuable information.
And there has been a lot written on the subject over the years, and I think sports psychology is kind of going through a revolution right now. So I think there's going to be a lot of really good, pertinent information coming out in the next couple of years. But there are some good books to read on the subject if you want to compete, if you want to do it at a high level, if you're going to be doing it over and over again, then you'd be foolish not to. And I think a good starting point is the new mental toughness training for sports, I think is the name of it. And it's a really good kind of overview, and it has a competitive objective profile where you can kind of take the test, and you have 3 people that have seen you in a stressful spot or competing ideally, and they kind of rank. It'll be like, are you assertive or are you passive? Are you tense or are you relaxed? And it kind of runs through all those. It'll point to areas that you can do a little bit better, that you can work on. And it's just like nuts and bolts, building a foundation of what you are like when you compete, what you're like when you're under stress, and how you can be a little bit better under stress, competing, etc.
Like the real hidden jiu-jitsu. A bunch of skills that you can practice if you know that you can practice them.
Yep. Are there any other sports psychology books that are jumping out at you, Professor? That was the one that jumped out at me.
Yeah, I think that's
We
That's
can
a big one,
we can
yeah.
stick with that one. But there's a lot of them out there, so do a little research. Like check it out. If you're going to be competing, you might as well be working on the mental side. Like you spend hours and days working on techniques and game plans and pulling guard and takedowns and whatever. Like you should spend at least some sort of amount of time on the mental side, right? Not just the physical, but the mental side, right? Figure yourself out, what you're like when you compete and how you can do it better.
yeah. And I think that again comes into like that appropriate goal setting. If you are competing to increase your confidence, but for whatever reason you're concentrating on the win, you're doing yourself a disservice, right? So match your area of effort and your goal.
So if they're competing to build confidence, what should their goal be, or what is a good example goal? Or
So I think if a person is competing to build up confidence, I think a good measurable goal would be, depending on the format of the tournament, would be 7.5 minutes of total mat time in a double elimination tournament and 17 minutes in a round robin. 17 minutes of total mat time. Right. So the idea being, right, stay on the mat, fight as long as you can.
did they die during the match? No.
Nope.
Boom. They made it.
Injured? Probably not. Right, bumped and bruised. But you can look back and say, all right, that person was trying to get me. Right? Maybe not trying to hurt me, but as close to trying to hurt me as they could get. And I lasted. I stayed in there with somebody trying to hurt me for 7.5 minutes. Or break it out. I hung out on 3 different mats with 3 different people trying to hurt me for 9.5 total minutes. I did that. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who cares if you won a medal or if you pulled off the technique that we learned 2 weeks ago in class or whatever other thing? If you're looking for confidence, again, I think that's too, you got to throw a little definition in there, right? Confidence in what area?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, if you're looking for confidence in jujitsu class, then come to more jujitsu class. If you're looking for confidence in the general world, or in a self-defense kind of thing, right? Like maybe mat time is your goal, right? Maybe you want to, I don't know, you want to achieve a certain position, right? Like I want to get mount on a fully resisting opponent. I think my teammates are being nice to me, right? So something
Which they are.
They are, but yeah, I mean something small and simple, without regard to the outcome of the match, can be really helpful in building that confidence.
Yeah, maintaining that perspective, right? You didn't have to put yourself out there where someone could choke you in public. Like you signed up, you stepped onto the mat, you showed up on the day, and there's several big things all wrapped up into one, and staying focused on that's huge. Yeah.
Yeah, and then on the way home from that tournament, you drive by 800 houses full of people that didn't put it on the line.
Sat on their sofa and watch TV.
Yeah. And you put it on the line today. All right, feel confident. Be proud of yourself. I think that too, like that post game, after the tournament, mental stuff is just as important as the preparation, as the before.
Often overlooked. Easy to just whatever, go celebrate or whatever, go out, hang out with your friends, and
just let it pass, and then either not take your lesson from it, or not let it digest and take the benefit from it.
Speaking of taking the lessons, in high school in football, we'd play our football game, win or lose, whatever. The next day, we'd come back and we'd watch the film. We'd watch the film again. Things we did well sometimes got mentioned, but often things that we did wrong were shown on repeat. But and that wasn't necessarily fun, especially if we lost. But it is a valuable tool, and it doesn't have to be painful. It doesn't have to be the next day. But like watching your matches, at some point, studying the things you did well, studying the things you could do better. Very good learning tool, learning your lessons.
Absolutely. I mean, almost invariably, I'll go back and watch old matches, even very soon thereafter, and I'll learn something new. I think, oh man, I could have done that little thing, that one little tweak better.
Yeah, yeah. Even in bad losses, there's always like one or two things that could have made a huge difference in order to turn the tide or whatever. Yeah.
And two, I mean, I think if you, if you are matching your effort to your goal again, you can do that post game and get a lot of benefit from realizing that you have made your goal. Right? If you set that goal of like, oh, I'm going to get my promotion, right? But all your effort was to something else, or you're kind of setting yourself up for disappointment. Whereas if you say, well, my goal was to build up my confidence, and I did last for X amount of time, so boom, I feel good about that. Or similarly, right? Like, oh, I was fighting for whatever, the win, or I was fighting for fun, and or I told everybody I was fighting for fun, and what I really wanted was a gold medal, and now I don't have a gold medal, and I wonder why.
That's so frustrating when you even in a loss, like they probably fought out of a submission, they probably replaced guard, they probably did a whole bunch of really good things, like objectively. If they're willing to go back and look at that and look at those things and count up those things, think about them, like those are good. Yeah. Those can build confidence. That worked against a fully resisting opponent. Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I think too, you can kind of play it back. Okay, well, I've got record. I got exactly what this is, and you can feel it. You can do it again. You can, right? If it was great, play it again. Okay? Get the benefit of that win over and over.
Repetition works.
Yeah, I think it does.
You were talking about grounding yourself and taking your shoes off and feeling the mats with your bare feet. Reminded me of Snazzy B, Coach Brittany, when she steps on the mat, when she's going out to compete. In her mind, that mat is her mat. She owns that mat. That's her little home. And I like that. That's a good one. This is now my space, right? And if that works for you, use that one. Try that one out next time you're getting out there to compete. That's now your mat.
Yeah. Whenever I'm going out, I'm nowhere. Right? And there's no floor, there's no mat, there's no ceiling, there's no walls, it's just that person.
Yeah.
Everything else is nothing.
If there's nothing around you, if you're in space, are you in closed guard or are you in the mount?
Well, ideally starting in the closed guard. Usually starting in the closed guard.
But is it mount? If you're in space.
Where's the camera? It's all a matter of perspective.
If there's no mat, it's both at the same time, yeah. True. There's no gravity.
Yeah. I don't know. Mount, you're not really crossing your ankles. Closing your guard.
Could.
Per se. Yeah, you could.
There's no mat behind you.
True.
Building a game plan, pulling guard, and then also like headshots. having something in your arsenal that maybe it's flashy, maybe it's high risk, like flying armbar, wrist lock, something that can put the whole rest of the division back on their heels.
Yeah, love it.
Yes, no. At what belt level? Probably shouldn't be focused on flying arm bars as a white belt, but having some sort of little ace in your deck is a good thing.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's the equivalent of having like a good 3-point shot. Like,
Yeah.
you wanna drive to the easy basket every time,
Right.
but at some point they're going to stand in front of you, right? They're going to stop
Right.
the drive. Um,
In changing to a different sport in football, if you're not throwing the deep ball, even if you don't get it, if you never throw the deep ball, then the defense just compresses down, right? And all they have to defend is that 10 yards past the line of scrimmage. So you want to take the top off the defense and make them defend the whole pitch, the whole field.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, when they clock your double leg and it doesn't work anymore, have something. And yeah, I think probably deeper blue belt is a great time to start developing.
You've competed a couple times. You have your A game. You have your guard pull. You have your guard game. You have your all that stuff, and you're still going to be working on fundamentals, obviously. But have an ace in the deck. Develop an ace, and the closer you can align it with all the rest of the stuff you're doing, the better.
Absolutely.
We haven't talked about building a game plan, right? Like first time you compete through, green belt, blue belt ish.
Yeah.
How to build a game plan. And I wrote down this morning, pulling guard. There is fundamental jiu-jitsu is super important, and you definitely want to have that, right? You want to have a takedown, guard pass, control mount, and submit. However, if you didn't wrestle in high school, if you didn't do a lot of jiu-jitsu, takedowns is a whole art unto itself. And passing is a whole art unto itself. And so pulling guard is relatively simple, and it can put you into a place of strength if you developed a guard game. And there's a ton of them. Spider guard, single leg X, butterfly guard, whatever. But if I have a goal meeting with a white belt and they say they want to compete, this is what I talk about. Develop a guard game, learn how to pull to that guard, and do it all from there. So you have the workload. You're not doing takedowns and guard passing. You're just doing a guard game.
I very much agree. For beginner folks, again, unless you have a takedown background, and for those folks that do have a takedown background, I think going into something like Superman Pass or something pretty easy and quick on the passing side is a great strategy for them. There's, especially in like an adrenalized first couple tournaments scenario, there's just too much potential to run in there and polar bear fight, just meet strength for strength and hold each other out.
Yeah.
And no takedowns ever happen.
Yeah. Or tie up with a judo black belt or a wrestler and you don't know it and you get taken down, you end up in a bad position, and then you got to fight from there.
Yeah. So I mean, there's big value in going to the lowest spot you can be, so you can't be pushed any lower, right? You're already down.
Even if it's just 2 or 3 months before a tournament, and you spend a ton of time on butterfly guard, sweeping, different sweeps from butterfly guard, different ways to control it, etc. 2 or 3 months. Think your opponent has not spent 2 or 3 months learning how to pass butterfly guard. It's just wildly unlikely. So your chance of winning that encounter, much higher.
And I think too, if you limit your dimensions, I'm saying, okay, I'm going to, this match is going to move forward and back and side to side and no up and down. then you limit the reactions that you have to remember, that you have to build in.
It's all mathematical and shit.
Right?
Geometry. Huh, I like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So building a game plan. Guard pull to your guard game, and then all of the things kind of around that. How to control that guard, how to sweep. The sweeps you're getting in class over and over again. Connect those sweeps to the next piece. Could be a transition, could be a submission, right? And then guard pull to the favorite sweep, to the transition, to the submission, and then how people pass it. How do you, there's a technical way to replace against that. Replace that back to your butterfly guard or whatever it is.
Work your escapes back to your guard game.
Escapes. I like it.
Work your and I'm a big proponent of that in comp class, doing specific training, going like from bottom of side control back to your favorite guard, bottom of mount back to your favorite guard, escape the back to your favorite, right? And always just funneling back
everything into that same vortex. Yeah, I like it. Not just guard replaces, connect your guard replaces back to that guard, but also the escapes, even submission escapes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, how to put yourself in the best position to win a match, technique wise, for white belt, green belt, blue belt.
Yeah, it's interesting because like I spent years and years and years building up the easy answers to all of those wig outs that that people are gonna do, right? And so in my mind, it's like, oh yeah, they reach down and grab your head inside the guard. Easy answer. Yes. But without that vocabulary, the easy answer is go to your thing. You don't have to avoid everything. You have to go to your thing.
Yeah. Instead of trying to stop all the negative things that can happen, focus really intensely on doing the really good thing that you know how to make happen. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I mean, in that space, you're gonna have imperfections and whatever. Things are not gonna go quite where you want them to go, but you keep that big goal in mind, and you adapt. Right? Like, oh, that arm isn't usually there, so I'm gonna push it, get it out of the way. Right? And you'll figure it out.
Keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars. I'm Casey Kasem.
Taking it back to.
You got something in there?
Mm.
Hey, cheers, Professor.
Yeah. Yeah, I think too, as you're building your game plan, don't shoehorn it.
What do you mean by that?
Like if something feels weird, don't force it into your competition plan because you think you need that technique or you think that looks cool. I see all the time folks will like, well, I want to pull lasso guard because this omoplata is super awesome and I need it in my game. Yeah. And I'm like, well, sorry, Jimmy, you've only got one hand. Lasso guard's not for you.
Your grip strength is awful. So you're a fan of the naturalistic approach. So one way to look at that is when you're training, what is a position you end up in all the time? Say like half guard, because that happens all the time. Well, you can develop a lot of answers from there, right? You're gonna be there anyways, so you might as well develop some good answers. And then once you've done that, then you've developed a guard game. You've developed a specialty.
Absolutely. I think too, there's a great big value in like where do you go when, like, where do you go from uncomfortable? Like my face is squished. I'm smashed into the floor. I'm uncomfortable. I don't like this. Where do I want to be? If I'm going out of here, where do I go to? And does it feel better to me to like wrap my legs all the way around my partner and lock it up? Does it feel better to get a hook in? Does it feel better to frame and move out completely? Right? Like where do I want to go from uncomfortable? And then we can start building from there, right? Like I know a lot of folks go from side control, use like the Marcello replace or replace out into the double leg, right? And coming up on top and really getting out from underneath their partner. I go from side control and replace to half guard, right? With my face turned.
No.
Because like I want to go from uncomfortable to back to my guard, and that kind of naturalistic, almost like defensive instinct. And you think, okay, well, if this is home base, this is where I go when I'm in trouble, I should learn to attack from home base. I should learn to be strong in the thing that's also keeping me safe. Right? Turn your sword into your shield, and your shield into your sword.
Right?
Getting philosophical up here.
Yeah. I like it. What's your style under stress? Maybe a smaller person in side control getting their face smashed. Their instinct would be to try to get away.
Mm-hmm. Use that frame, escape to the back, follow your underhook.
Maybe a big strong person would try to grab them and squeeze them and pull them in so they can roll them over.
Yeah. Fight from your own side control. Fight from your own half guard.
Yeah. And so much of jiu-jitsu is not intuitive, is counterintuitive, is not what you would do naturally. But then within that framework of good jiu-jitsu, what is your style? What is your fingerprint? What are your instincts? Where do they tend?
Yeah. I've wondered many times where we get those idiosyncrasies, where we get those tendencies. And I think part of it's body type and part of it's exposure, what we were exposed to first.
Both nature and nurture.
Yeah. I think there's a little bit of both. And so when people say, well, what's going to be the best technique for me? I have no idea, man. I'm excited to find out.
I can tell you it's the one that works.
Right? It could be something completely different than your twin brother.
Yeah. I encourage the naturalistic approach a lot. I also, I'll encourage students to chase after the sparkly, shiny thing too. Not like if there's a tournament in 2 months, no. But like a year from now, sure. You see single leg X, whatever. Your favorite competitor does whatever, and you want to learn that, and you're super passionate about it, and it looks amazing, it looks awesome. Then do it.
Yeah,
you can do that. So. There are some limitations, right? If you have really short legs and you have no grip strength, trying to be a spider guard player is probably not the best idea. But once you run it through that matrix, like, is this something that my body can actually do? Is this something I'm capable of? Yeah. If you're passionate about it, follow your passion. That can lead to really good jiu-jitsu.
100%. Well, and I think if it's good jiu-jitsu, every technique can work for every person. There's all kinds of bullshit jiu-jitsu that doesn't work for every person.
Is that your definition of good jiu-jitsu and bullshit jiu-jitsu?
That's one of them. Yeah. But I mean, yeah, bullshit jiu-jitsu will work for some people and not others. Pretty like that's a surefire.
And past a certain percent, if it's a small enough percentage, that's really bad jiu-jitsu.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, that's anomalous. But shit, where was I with that now?
Passionate, following your passions about the sparkly jiu-jitsu.
Right. All jiu-jitsu will work for all people, right? You can make good jiu-jitsu work for everybody. but not all jiu-jitsu has to be your favorite. Not all jiu-jitsu is everybody's favorite. And I think the difference between learning the new shiny thing and struggling through something that doesn't fit your game now isn't a bad thing. I think trying to force something into your game in a short amount of time, like you were saying, and maybe trying to force something into your competition game isn't a great idea.
The very highest level.
Yeah, competition time is not experimentation time. It's not show-off time. All right, competition time is
nuts and bolts.
Nuts and bolts, right? Like
greasing the grooves.
Show up and make pizza.
Sharpen up your very best stuff.
Yeah.
Make it even a little bit better.
Yes. All right, the stuff you have no doubt about. Go in and use that. And so, yeah, I think I definitely encourage learning all kinds of everything. But
eventually you have to face your blind spots, face your weaknesses, both technical and mental, emotional, to grow past a certain point. But it doesn't have to be for your first competition. I mean, it shouldn't be for your first competition, really, at least in some ways.
Yeah. I think competition is by itself an uncomfortable environment, is an uncomfortable situation. And there's no need to exponentially compound that.
Yeah.
Right? Let the competition be the uncomfortable part, not, I'm competing and I'm competing with a set of brand new techniques in my brand new gi that doesn't fit well and is itchy with my brand new coach who doesn't talk to me. Like, no, eliminate variables, make the shit as easy on yourself as possible, right? Like your tried and true game with the coach that you can hear, with the gi you like that fits well.
Yeah.
We got what? Pre-planning, in-game, post-game analysis.
Warm up. We talked about beforehand about warming up sufficiently, making sure you were super sweaty. And what I always forget is warming up my grips. Right after my first match, my grips are almost always blown out. I'm like, oh, damn it! Why didn't I warm up my grips? Warm up your grips, but don't just warm up a little bit. Don't just hop up and down for 5 minutes. Like,
yeah,
get yourself glistening.
Yeah, and don't warm up for 15 minutes and then sit for 30.
No.
I see that all the time.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, I ask, well, did you warm up? Oh yeah, professor, I got a good warm up. Cool. How long ago was that? 45 minutes.
All right, well, get back out there.
Yeah, do it again. And oh my goodness, take your nervousness and uncross your arms and stop staring and do jumping jacks. Right? Take your nervous energy and get sweaty.
Yeah.
It's going to be way more productive than 45 deep breaths with your arms crossed like on the mat. Like, it's going to burn holes in your eyeballs, right?
Not all that deep if your arms are crossed, right?
Sure.
We didn't talk about physical preparation as far as cardio. I think Marcelo Garcia is the exception, right? He basically just trains, like, he'll just line up a bunch of black belts and train with them over and over and over and over. Most people do outside cardio, sprint intervals, some long, slow distance, maybe some CrossFit, some strength stuff.
I think that HIIT training, high intensity interval training, is awesome for jiu-jitsu. That's going to be cardio that gets you very close to the up and down pace that combat sports do. You have to have that. What rule 1 of Zombieland? You gotta have the cardio.
Rule 2? Anyone? Double tap.
Yeah, I think cardio can help with your confidence. If you, again, eliminating variables. If you feel gassed, you lose your mental edge.
What the famous quote is it? Exhaustion makes cowards of us all. I think it's a famous football coach said that. But man, when you're completely exhausted and they're grinding on you and they're trying to get you in a submission, it's so easy to just be like, screw it. maybe next time, and quit, and be so upset with yourself afterwards because of it, when really it wasn't mental toughness. It was just cardio. You lacked the preparation.
Yeah.
Wasn't mental toughness per se. There definitely was some lack of mental toughness in there.
It was mental toughness, but not mental toughness today. It was mental toughness for the last 8 weeks where you didn't do your cardio.
Yeah.
You gotta get your outside cardio, and I think outside stretching and conditioning also. Right? Like, have some kind of way that you are getting the body ready.
Yeah.
Right. I think cool downs too. Underrated, underperformed. I see folks high five and shoot the shit for a minute and then take off.
Yeah, all that lactic acid is still in your muscles. I see athletes like riding on an Airdyne or whatever in between stuff or after a game, whatever, just kind of letting all that stuff flow out so they're not so sore the next day.
Yeah.
That's smart. The mid-match, you pass someone's guard, you're in side control, but the referee didn't give you points. No points were awarded.
Well, so I've got 2 answers for that one. Right.
Shoot.
For dark horse students, don't worry about it. I will handle it.
If there's a coach nearby, they should be on it.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep. It is not your responsibility as a competitor to fight with refs. I will fight with refs. Let's go.
However, sometimes there's no coach nearby.
Yeah. And I think that the advice that I would give general people for the ref didn't give me my points, my coach isn't here to get my back or whatever, is you fight the best fight you can do. And even if you lose on the 2 points from that takedown that you weren't awarded or whatever, you fight your best fight. And you don't let your loss or victory depend on those points. Even if that's
the goal, right?
Right. Even if that's just on the mental side.
And you're going for a submission. But taking a step back, like mat awareness of how much time is left, right? Awareness of the score as it changes throughout the match. Awareness of perhaps your exhaustion levels near the end if you're behind and you're going to need to make a push, right?
Yeah.
But kind of having a little bit of, not perspective, what would you call that? Mat awareness, spatial awareness, mat awareness, right? I remember Elliot Marshall talking about like mid-match, you have to be ready to like talk to the ref and tell him, hey, give me my 3 points. And at the upper belts, or like if you have like really strong side control and you can stop for a second and you're facing the points, you're facing the scoreboard. But that's pretty advanced. Yeah. That's pretty tricky. And you are definitely, for a second, taking yourself out of the fight to talk to the referee, to look at the points.
I don't think most people are going to be competing at a high enough level with large enough prizes that it's going to be a fight about it kind of issue. And so I said, fight your best fight. And if you lose on those points, in your head, you're saying, well, I lost on those points, and if I would have got them, I would have won, but I fought my best fight, so I didn't lose.
Yeah.
I did everything I could do today. I did not lose. Because that's the truth of it, is if you do everything you can do in that fight, maybe you didn't score the correct amount of points and you didn't get a submission. But you didn't lose. And the other like really big one, and people get so off the handle on this, you're not a loser.
Loser. So what you're saying is, if I compete in a tournament and I lose, that absolutely makes me a shitty person, right?
It's like that
forever.
I'm saying exactly that, except the opposite. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Losing doesn't make you a loser. Losing.
What was it? The big guy that fought in the UFC from here locally, heavyweight. He fought Brock Lesnar for the heavyweight. For the heavyweight championship. Shane Carwin. He said every competition loss, every loss in a match in the room, every time he got hurt, knocked out, he said every one of those was a stepping stone on my path to success.
Yeah. One of my go-to flexes is I have tapped out more than everybody in this room combined. That's why I'm the black belt. I have lost more than all of you.
Weird flex, but okay. I've never thought about it that way, but now I do. Now that's in my head. Yeah. Someone this happens all the time. Rolling with someone, they're like, someone almost has a submission, they'll let go of it, or they'll stop trying, and they're like, oh, I just didn't want to. I'm like, I'm a black belt. I know how to tap. Just go ahead and do it. It's all right. I know how to tap.
Right? Yeah, and it's not like it takes anything away from you.
Being a loser.
Being a loser doesn't take anything away from you. Right? Yeah. I mean, if you lose in a tournament and you go to class on Monday, it didn't take away your jiu-jitsu. It didn't knock a stripe off your belt. You didn't get selective amnesia.
You don't get a black belt. You don't win worlds without an Everest-sized mountain of taps.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
the only failure is not learning from the taps, or beating yourself up over them.
Yeah. Or not tapping and getting hurt because you were being stubborn. That's a loss.
Yeah.
That's a bad day.
Yeah.
I actually thought about that in my very first tournament. It was the semifinal, second to last match. And the guy caught me in the back and was choking me out. And I remember looking over at the sideline thinking, I'm not getting out. I wonder if I should just go out. Right?
I'm a little tired. I could take a nap right now.
Well, I was thinking oh, my coach doesn't want me to tap. I shouldn't tap. Right? I'm got, but I should just let him put me out. That's
the warrior spirit.
Yeah.
Right? Never give up.
Gotta have the toughness.
Never back down.
Yeah.
No fear.
No surrender.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Samurai mentality.
Yeah. That's the mentality of a guy that shits himself on the mat. So that's not a mentality I'd like to have or promote in others.
Yeah. So wear brown shorts. Prepare beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
Or tap.
Yeah.
You could just tap. Matter of fact, tap. Just tap.
That's the one.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's a good closing spot. Talking about tapping. Tap out. We can tap out.
Don't be stubborn. Just tap.
Just don't be stubborn about tapping. Don't tell me not to be stubborn.
Professor, I'm going to need you to be way more flexible about being stubborn.
That was the first instinct in my head. Was, hey, why is he saying don't be stubborn? Hey. Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I feel like we got a good overview of things to do with competing, how to prepare if you haven't done it before, some avenues for mental preparation, physical preparation, game plan preparation,
A little bit, yeah.
preparing for all eventualities, doing well afterwards, being okay with yourself, win and or lose. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any closing thoughts?
No, I think we covered a lot today. But you just can't guess everybody's questions. So leave us your questions. Let us know what your experience is with competition, what was hard for you or easy for you, if any of this helped you. Even if you're watching this in the future, leave us a comment and let us know if any of this helped.
I feel like this was a pretty good overview, but I'm certain that there are things that we did not touch on, questions that people have about competing or whatever, how to do it better or whatever. So yeah, let us know. As always, thank you so much for coming out. Thanks for listening.
Let us know the word of the day and how many different gummies we ate in today's episode.
And when did Professor Charles eat the gummy bear named Steve?
Ooh. For you eagle eyes out there. All right.
Break on 3. 1, 2, 3.